please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Market is up 40 points or so, 10,543 is where we are at. And before we go any further, I just want to put out a couple of stocks and basically all metal names. Let's start with the Nifty metal index itself, which not just today but for the week would post some very good gains. I think for the week it should be up, I would say 4-5%. I mean, it's done phenomenally well through the course of the last many days. 7.5% actually. I think that's the tally for the last, 7 days? Seems like that. Now let's look at Tata Steel, JSW Steel, 2 steel stocks and 2 non-ferrous stocks, Hindalco and NMDC. I mean, that would basically cover the spectrum. Tata Steel is up 1.7% again for the week. Good tally. Hindalco, I mean, it's 0.5% higher, but for the week it should be up. NMDC is a kind of a underperformer, laggard, which has started to pick up considerably, back at about 160 odd rupees or so. And then there are a whole host of other names, but just to give you an indication of what these names have been doing now, not just today, but since the start of the week. We'll get back to more stocks in a bit. As the countdown to Budget 2018 begins, we have been speaking with various policy makers, ministry officials and corporates on what they're expecting from the finance minister on the day of the budget. Earlier today, we spoke with Durga Shanker Mishra, who is the Secretary of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. And the conversation essentially largely focused around the affordable housing scheme, what's been done and what is the outlook going ahead looking like. Let's listen in.
The most popular is right now beneficiary-led construction, which constitute nearly 57%. So far, we have already sanctioned over 37 lakhs houses. It is nearly 37.5 lakhs houses we have sanctioned. Under the credit link, in the last 1 year, we have been able to do more than 83,000 houses so far, and we are able to disburse over 1,600 crores. Last year, our budget for CLSS was 1,400 crores. And we are getting additional funds. I mean, you know that the Parliament is under session, and so this we are going to get additional funds. And whatever demands are coming, we are going to do that. The government has been very kind to extend. This scheme was only till December 2017, and now this has been extended up to March 2019. Budgetary allocation was 6,000 crore, and we are getting another 13,000 crores for the balance, because there's so much of sanctions have been there. I mean, I told you this 37.5 lakh houses have been sanctioned under different schemes. So we are going to support the states for this.
Okay, well, those are some expectations from the budget, but nonetheless, that was the finance minister speaking in the Lok Sabha, and we're going to get you more details in terms of what he was speaking about. I understand it was more about the farmers, but that would be a couple of statements which would flash on your screen soon enough as well. Time now for Ashwini to join in and to talk about what exactly he's strategizing in the equity market. So Ashwini, over to you then. For the Nifty, do you have a lot of conviction to go long at current levels, and what would a target be if that's the case?
See, I have conviction to go short at current levels, because if this was the great breakout, then we should have traded above 10,550 fairly substantially by now. That we are not there yet and already retreating. Plus, you know, the futures are not giving you that sort of premium which would indicate that great amounts of futures positions are being assumed, at least on the large indices. Mid cap may be a different issue, but on the mainline indices, it looks like more, like long positions will get trapped above 10,550, and by the end of the day, the market at best could close flat on the large indices.
Ashwini, we just have to cut across to the finance minister.
ये एक व्यवस्था बनी हुई है
श्रीमती वी सत्यभामा.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Throughout India, farmers' income has dropped because of crop loss due to drought, rains and floods. Madam, now they don't know how to repay their loans. This is the plight of farmers in India. This needs to be addressed on a war footing note. The government has fixed a target of rupees 10 lakh crores for providing loans to the farmers this year. Madam, this should be distributed without any dogging and a delay by the bankers. Madam, I would know.
Okay, we'll cut back when the finance minister is speaking again. Ashwini, but go on. I think you were completing the point on the market, broader market.
See, large cap indices are failing at higher levels, but broader market, there still seems to be some upside, although now the Nifty next 50 index has also dropped 50 points from the highs. So people should take cognizance of that, if big money isn't coming in, which means FII or institutions which buy big stocks, then this sort of mid-cap run will also see at least a pause, if nothing else. So that way, for the moment, today cement stocks have done well, maybe because of affordable housing, etc. So India's cement is a buy with a stop of 196, target of 210. Kolte Patil, real estate is doing well, maybe because of affordable housing. That's a buy with a stop of 368, target of 386. And Motilal is a buy with a stop of 1530, target of 1600.
Okay, Ashwini, I think we're going to take our chance and try and cut back to the Parliament now for a discussion, or maybe just not yet. So it's quite a hit and miss going on there. But nonetheless, we have one eye on that. In the meantime, we have a couple of Twitter queries right now, Ashwini. So let's get through them. Sudhakar has 400 shares of Bank of Baroda at 171 and wants to know whether to hold or sell.
No. Although people say, corporate lenders, etc. are coming back, but if you ask me, PSU banks are a can of worms. So if I were him, I would move into a Yes Bank, which is a much better run bank, corporate lender, but gone through a serious correction, now coming back strongly. In case he wants to remain with that BOB, probably keep a stop, say around 150, and maybe at some point you could get targets of 220.
Okay. And Dhruv has 100 shares of Jindal Steel and Power at 166, wants to know the long-term view on that stock and whether he should add more.
See, now I don't know whether this has suddenly become a long-term stock, but yes, because steel, etc. is having a good time, so you can buy the dip and maybe you'll get 250. But don't get overexcited with stocks like JSPL, etc. They can give you sharp run, and the corrections can be equally sharp as well.
All right, Ashwini, thanks very much. We will speak with you soon again. What we'll do is we'll just quickly see what's happening in the Parliament. Let's take a quick look. Yeah.
सेक्टर के ऊपर केंद्रीय बजट में से इस साल हम लोग खर्च कर रहे हैं, उस प्रकार से राज्य सरकारों को भी अपने बजट की सीमाओं में से उसमें से खर्चा करना पड़ेगा कि उसकी सीमाएं कितनी है और वो कितना उसमें से अफोर्ड कर सकते हैं।
मोहम्मद सलीम।
मैडम, मैं पूरा एक कृषि क्षेत्र से आता हूं, सिर्फ हमारा क्षेत्र रायगंज नहीं, पूरा सीमांचल उत्तर बंगाल। आधारभूत सवाल यह है कि किसान कर्जदार हो क्यों रहे हैं। हम कर्ज माफी की बात कर रहे हैं, लेकिन आप अगर उसका बैकवर्ड लिंकेज और फॉरवर्ड लिंकेज को सही नहीं करेंगे, मैं उसमें नहीं जा रहा हूं, आप भी कहे, तो कर्जदार होंगे। आपने प्रश्न के जो ग में उत्तर में कहा कि बैंकिंग सिस्टम में ये बंदोबस्त है कि जब नेचुरल कैलामिटीज होते हैं, प्राकृतिक आपदा होते हैं, तो ये इतने प्रतिशत इतना होगा। लेकिन अभी हमारे पूरा सीमांचल, आसाम, उत्तर बंगाल में बाढ़ हुए और कृषि ऐसा है कि 4 महीने के अंदर उनको अगर पैसा नहीं मिलता है तो फिर नए फसल वो कैसे करेंगे। तो आप स्पेसिफिक रूप से कहिए कि इस प्राकृतिक आपदा के दौरान आपने बैंक को क्या हिदायत दिए थे कि नए से किसान कर्जदार नहीं हो, उनका रिस्ट्रक्चरिंग कितना हुआ, कौन बैंक कितना किया, और किसानों को फिर से उपज के लिए जो बुनियादी जरूरत थी वो पूरा करने के लिए उनको ऋण कितना मिला। ये स्पेसिफिक मेरा सवाल है। वरना आप ए में सरकार रिजर्व बैंक के एक्स गवर्नर और नाबार्ड और सिडबी की बात कह रही है, उत्तर प्रदेश में चुनाव जीते आप ये कह करके कि हमने कर्ज माफी कर देंगे, और अभी आपको अकल आई 700 चूहा जाकर खा करके अब हज को जाने से क्या फायदा।
ऐसे शब्द नहीं जाएंगे, ऐसे शब्द नहीं जाएंगे, ऐसे शब्द।
अध्यक्ष जी, जहां तक
शब्द ठीक यूज किया करो।
जहां तक बाढ़ या किसी प्राकृतिक आपदा का प्रश्न है, दुर्भाग्यवश से अगर किसी वजह से ये आती हैं, चाहे बंगाल में हो या किसी अन्य राज्य में हो, तो उसकी बहुत ही ऑब्जेक्टिव गाइडलाइंस अब बनी है और लिबरल गाइडलाइंस बनी है। और पिछले 3 सालों के अंदर उनको और लिबरलाइज किया गया है। अगर 33% क्रॉप लोन होता है तो उसको डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट के तहत उसकी गणित के अंदर वो आ जाता है। और इसलिए जब राज्य अपनी डिमांड भेजते हैं तो उस डिमांड को केंद्र कंसिडर करता है। राज्यों के पास भी उसका प्रावधान अब तो एकदम इंस्टीट्यूशनल मैकेनिज्म स्टेट डिजास्टर रिलीफ फंड और नेशनल डिजास्टर रिलीफ फंड का है और उसकी बहुत टाइट गाइडलाइंस हैं जिसके तहत ऑब्जेक्टिवली उस राज्य की असिस्टेंस होती है और पूर्ण रूप से बंगाल को भी उसी हिसाब से असिस्टेंस की जाएगी।
क्वेश्चन नंबर 263 कुंवर हरबंश सिंह।
क्वेश्चन नंबर 263।
यस मिनिस्टर।
मैडम द रिप्लाई हैज बीन प्लेस्ड बिफोर द हाउस।
यस पूछिए।
अध्यक्ष महोदया, विश्व बैंक एवं अंतर्राष्ट्रीय एजेंसियों के सहयोग से देश में कई परियोजनाएं चल रही हैं, परंतु पूर्व में नियमित अंतराल पर इन परियोजनाओं में घोर वित्तीय अनियमितताओं की खबरें आती रहती थी। अतः मैं माननीय मंत्री जी से यह जानना चाहता हूं कि विश्व बैंक द्वारा
The market's up 25 points now, so there is a steep climb down which is happening. So 20 points lost since we started the show at 11. And you can see that come down right there on your screens. So, I mean, if you could just look at what's contributing, how much, and maybe we could gauge very quickly what's leading to this climb down. Seems to be across the board. I can't spot anything large or a single name which is selling off and leading to this kind of pressure. But there is general sort of profit taking across the board. 22 points now is all that is left on the Nifty. Madhav Dhar is managing partner at GTI Capital Group and he's joining us right now to discuss market fundamentals. He was with us exactly a month back. Madhav, thanks very much. Great to have you with us here. Appreciate your time. Could you first let us know what you, how important do you consider the budget to be? I know your thought process. You don't think that events matter that much. It's what happens over a period of time is more important. But I mean, for whatever it's worth, I'm going to pose that question to you. Budget 2018.
Yeah, no, listen, as you said, that the event will create volatility and lots of noise, but fundamental solid policy change obviously matters a lot to the direction of the economy and inflation and therefore for the markets. So it really is a function of not the accounting of the budget and marginal changes here and there, whether there is some very fundamental change in policies that can change the trajectory of the economy. And I don't have a sense of that. I don't have a sense that there's some sweeping big bang stuff. So odds are it'll be a slightly positive, slightly non-event. But the underlying fundamentals of the economy are much more relevant, both globally and locally. And that's a mixed bag. Some things look good in terms of a growth pickup, particularly around the world and in India. Inflation is picking up around the world, and that's a worrying sign. Valuations are extended, and people are bullish. So that's the sum total of it, and it's a mixed bag.
Okay. Madhav, hi. Good to see you in again, and wishing you a happy 2018 as well. I wanted to actually ask you that if in case we do...
No such luck, but thank you.
You don't know, you have 12 months to go. But nonetheless, fiscal deficit, if we do slip, which is most likely, obviously, the math is out there, and it comes in, say, at a 3.5 or 3.7%. Would that worry you? Is that worrying you? And will it affect the market sentiment at all?
Again, at the risk of sounding heretical, I think the quality of the deficit is a little more important than the quantity of the deficit. So if we have a deficit because farmer loans are being waived, or there is a bigger fertilizer subsidy or some other handout, I think there is no question that will be not good for the bond market and not good for the stock market. If there is a budget deficit, I'm just making it up, because it's going directly to very transparent, very powerful infrastructure spending, or whether it's going to really retooling elementary public school education, or it's genuine medical insurance that is implemented, and that is affecting the budget, I think the reaction will be entirely different. So I'm one of those people who truly focus on what you're spending on, beyond your means rather than the fact that you're spending beyond your means. So I don't mean to duck the question. I think it matters less than people think, especially at the margin, 0.2 here, 0.3 here. But how you get to that number is very important. Not top priority in my mind.
Right. So I'm just going to take that point forward. 2017 and even 16, the broad way people described it was that the micros were under pressure, the macros were great. As we've turned the year, many are saying that the macros may be looking tougher and tougher, while the micros will improve. Now, that might be a general top-down statement to make. But if you agree with that macros are going to be under pressure going forward, they won't be as strong. I mean, one of the things is oil from where it's come up, which may impact that. Can the government do anything about it, especially around the budget?
No, you know, I think firstly I broadly agree with that the micros will start improving and the macros, well, the macros are mixed. I think the GDP will pick up, interest rates, inflation are sticky, and this global tide of liquidity is slowly receding. So from that standpoint, macros are negative. From a growth pickup standpoint, both in terms of headline GDP and especially corporate profitability, I mean, I have very little doubt that 2018 will be a better year. But I guess to me, you know, what really stops India from moving out into the 8.5, 9, 10% GDP range, I think that's what everybody's waiting for, which is large-scale privatization, large-scale infrastructure spending, you know, genuine labor reform in this country, you know, land holding, land use, land reform. So that is what needs to be done if you want to be taken as a serious high-growth economy in the old Asian tradition. And the odds of that seem low. And that is something that needs to be talked about, and the government should be pushed on that agenda as opposed to saying, oh, ye to ho hi nahi sakta, you know, because of political compulsions, which I think is rubbish. But that is the big bang stuff. And one thing where I think there is encouragement, and maybe I'm taking it too much as a single sign, I think Air India will get privatized in some shape or form, and largely it seems to be in a very constructive way. And I think that's big time stuff. I think that will not only be a very good thing for the aviation sector in India, but that will be a big signal to both the domestic market and the economy and the international observers that India is serious about fixing things that are broken. We are not famous for fixing things that are broken. We adjust, we sweep under the carpet, we tweak at the margins. So this will be a big deal. So speaking of big bang things, I think if Air India is cleanly privatized successfully, I think that will be a big bang reform.
Okay, well, Madhav, you know, we left off the last answer where you did mention likely reforms, Air India privatization. When you mention reforms by the government, the other two things that come to mind is maybe free pricing of petrol despite Brent crude going up in 2018, and that's obviously linked to the health of OMCs. And the other thing is what's happening with the NCLT process and the NPA process when you talk about PSU Banks. So would you be a buyer in these two sectors on hopes of maybe some optimism?
Well, I've been sort of positively inclined and long these stocks for a couple of years, anticipating recap and some incremental changes, and they've already done very well. So I'm not sure I'm a buyer of anything at this point. But yeah, I know I continue to believe that the trends are favorable in straightening out the NPA system, the bankruptcy code, and the restructuring legislation seems largely very good. It needs tweaking here and tweaking there, but at least these problems are being addressed. These banks are being recapitalized. I mean, there may be a bigger existential issue, which I don't think India is ready for, is that why do we need such a large public sector banking system? You know, why is it different than Air India, where you think you need a national carrier and you keep putting money and it keeps blowing it up? So at some level, it's not that different, but that's a much more evolved and more difficult decision for India, perhaps several years down the road. But right now, at least the problem of bad loans is being addressed, thin capitalization is being addressed, and the trends for banking are extremely good. So if these companies are straightened out, But don't forget, I mean, just the capitalization is not enough. You have to go and change boardroom dynamics, CEO compensation, hiring, firing, freedom of movement, lack of political interference. You can't just keep recapitalizing these things assuming that you fix them. So, but having said all of that, I think the trends are favorable, which is not a good answer to whether I'd buy them or not, but I think the banking system is getting better, and frankly looks like credit growth is finally starting to pick up from very low levels, even though new projects are still anemic.
Madhav, last time, which is about a month back, you were on the show, you said valuations, broader market, are high to very high. And most people that we speak with, I mean, more often than not privately, they express, I mean, almost a sense of fear that one day, you know, it's going to end, and maybe, you know, it's going to be more than just a halt. No one knows when. I just want to read so put that against a quote that I want to read to you. This is Robert Buckland from Citi, who wrote, and I quote, having had a good year in 2016, contrarian strategies underperformed in 2017 when they were too defensive. They will be defensive again in 2018. Contrarians are now implicitly calling the end of this economic and market cycle. This call is premature. We would resist the temptation to chase any new year rotation. I mean, who would you side with, and what would you do?
No, listen, I don't think these things are so simple. And valuations, to be clear, are never a trigger for a market to go down. Valuations simply tell you that once something goes wrong, how far something will go down. So it is not a necessary condition to ending of something, but it tells you how far you're going to fall when something takes your legs from under you. So we have to focus not on valuations, but what is it that will take the legs from under you. So let me, I guess, fall back on two old proverbs. One is, bull markets never die of old age. They are killed. And they're usually killed by the central bankers. So this bull market is now 8 years old. It's up 400% in the S&P. You know, a heck of a lot in emerging markets around the world. So this is an old bull. It's a very expensive bull, but right now it's a strong bull, both globally and locally. The economies are picking up. USM, ISM orders are fantastic. Wage rates are picking up. So the US, as usual, has surprised the world of how resilient and strong it is. And I've always maintained it's the country of the future and will always be. You can go on underestimating what's happening there, but it seems to continue to lead the world yet again. Having said that, the thing that worries me the most is that it's always, I mean, the end is very similar in the sense that it comes from rising interest rates. And it may not always be the central bank, because if the central banks are spraying the world with liquidity, it'll show up in bond spreads, whether it's high yield spreads in the US, or whether it is the quantity and quality of financing for the Indian NBFCs. That's what bears watching. And even though liquidity is very high around the world and interest rates are very low, the change at the margin of the last 18 months is clearly that rates have gone up. And I think this time the risk will be very similar, that inflation is suddenly a little higher than you thought. And the Fed raises rates 4 or 5 times in 2018, and somewhere this thing starts stumbling, the market starts stumbling. And I think that will be the likely pattern. I mean, I have a contrarian instinct, I have a valuation grounding, Prashant, as you know, but I think those are necessary conditions, not sufficient conditions for something to come to an end. So we have to watch. I'm not sure it'll be oil, but oil is a signal not necessarily of supply issues, but demand issues as growth has picked up. Labor wage rates are picking up in the US, inflation along with it. So it's classical old-fashioned stuff.
So watch interest rates. You're giving us that to
And
watch
I might add, from a sentiment standpoint, sorry, the one thing I wanted to point out was, one of the things that kept me very bullish all of last year and continuing this year is that even though things looked extended, there was not, you need a full capitulation into the bullish side people were very skeptical. Oh, India is going up and the earnings are not going up. There's no real reform. So there was a lot of that talk. Similarly, oh my God, Trump has a button on the nuclear trigger and he's a crazy man and God knows what the world will be. A year later, people are quite relaxed. I don't think you still have full capitulation, but people now believe that domestic flows into Indian stock market will continue. We don't need the foreigners. Things are going well. We've got GST. So there is a little more assumption of that things are going to work out. You have Bitcoin going up 17, 20 times. You have a painting that sold for $500 million, another yacht that sold for $500 million. So you are getting finally into that little bit of that late stage go-go mode. I still don't think it's done yet. But, I don't think it's another year of this. Maybe it's 3 months of this, maybe there's 6 months of this.
Sure.
Jeff Bezos is easily now the richest man in the world. So you're getting that late stage feeling.
Got that. Interesting as always to listen to you. Actually, we wanted to talk a little bit about cryptos, but maybe we'll invite you for a chat next time specifically on that. Thanks very much, Madhav. And once again, I wish you a good 2000.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. Thank you indeed. Ekta, we're completely out of time, so let's wrap this up.
Wrap it up.
Absolutely. Stay tuned. Halftime report comes right up.